All right, Falconer TRX had also made a comment about the quarterback play, or at least what's being reported from spring practice. I don't know if there's anything necessarily fresh and new, but I know that you've been fairly optimistic about what this quarterback room could possibly yield.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems that that is what is being yielded. So we're taking the potential that we saw from before and turning it into performance, relatively. Obviously, it's not full go, everybody live, you tackle the quarterbacks to the ground or anything. But every single day, every single person who goes to practice continues just to rave about Cam Ward. And, also, if you remember, Miami did not have anyone wearing the number 1 jersey last year. And Mario said, y'all got to earn that. And he steps in. I think that was probably part of the negotiation to come here. He's like, hey, I've worn number 1 everywhere I've been. Give me the number 1 jersey on offense. And then Kiko Mawinoa, the linebacker, switched from 51 to 1 on defense. So, like, elite players. But he continues to flash. Jakari Brown continues to show improvement on accuracy. And if that takes hold, right, if that actually is a change that stays moving forward, that again that's such a huge thing, because he has all of the physical tools in the world. But if you can put the ball where he needs and wants it to go intentionally, then you really have a real live 4-way battle next year with Poffenbarger, Jakari, Emery, and Judd Anderson coming off of a red shirt, because he's definitely going to red shirt as the 5th quarterback in the room. Like, you have the kind of talent that you need and want, and they're playing like it. And again, I made the analogy of KJ Osborne teaching the wide receivers previously here at Miami how to be professionals and go about their craft. KJ Osborne, who's still in the league and just signed a new deal with the New England Patriots. So he's doing it at the next level and had a great 5-year run or 4-year run, in Minnesota. Like, you're seeing that same thing with Cam Ward, just going about his business and it impacting and improving what we're seeing at quarterback. I mean, it's the most important position on the field. I mean, every position is important, but we've seen teams go as quarterbacks go, and hopefully this is something that's able to continue moving forward. So I am super duper 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 excited about it, but take everything with a grain of salt. And as I believe it was Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I say that to say it's easy on air to work on your long delivery and your accuracy and everything. Remember, we heard that about Tim Tebow in the NFL. Oh, no, he's sitting there and dotting it up all of a sudden. Yeah, and he's taking that super – I got baseball right here. Baseball is my favorite sport in the entire world. I was just not I was not as good at it as others, but I got a baseball on my desk every single day. And he had that long windup and everything. But remember, I don't even know how, but won that playoff game coming back after that year. He said, oh, yeah, no, he's precise with his passes. He looks like left-handed Kurt Warner out there. He has a strong arm. And all of a sudden, when those pass rushers got in his face, what happened? The same Tebow we had seen before, and the same kind of release, which was long, and the same kind of issues that had been told to have been worked out. It wasn't a punch. He got tackled, but the metaphorical punch to the face came, and then he went back to being that same dude. We shall see if that is what happens with all of these quarterbacks that are not Cam Ward, but particularly Jakari Brown. But what we are seeing and what has been done so far is a step in the right direction, and hopefully we keep that going.
What was funny about Tim Tebow was during that run with the Broncos, and you'll recall this, he went on like a 8 or 9 game streak where he didn't statistically do much of anything. The defense was winning the game, but he was making like 1 or 2 plays at the end of the game to win the game. And they won like 8 or 9 games in a row, and they weren't supposed to make the playoffs, and he takes them into the playoffs. Then he pulls off that overtime game against the Steelers, and then they get brought down to earth against the Patriots the next week. If you look up Tim Tebow's career record as a starting quarterback in the NFL, it's not just otherworldly, but it's rather impressive for a guy who never got another opportunity to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, because people knew, okay, he just caught a streak and he had the defense, and he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. But his career record's like 13-8 or something.
But yeah, they're kind of crazy. But
speaking of which, our guy George has calculated the exact time to the Florida kickoff in the swamp.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they have a running timer, just like Michigan and that school in the state south of Michigan have towards that game and whatnot, and Texas and Oklahoma and USC, UCLA, and there's so many of these rivalries where it's like, yeah, you go into the facility, it's just like, how long until? Oh, okay, cool, and it's plastered on the wall. I'm with it. I'm here for it, and that's okay. I don't know. It does feel weird that George is counting down to his team's impending doom, because we're about to go into Gainesville and whip that ass. But if you want to worry about the train coming down the tracks the entire time while you're standing there, that seems anxiety riddled to me. I wouldn't want to do that. But hey, if that's how you deal with what's about to happen, go right ahead.
George, we love you, but I got to think that if you're a Florida football fan, I cannot think of another big time fan base. If you're rooting for Illinois or something, that's one thing. Big time fan base that has less to be optimistic about this year. Not that they don't have some talent, but with that schedule, I got to think that the attitude and the level of optimism of that fan base coming into this season has to be lower than anybody.
I mean, there's that, and then there's also just false bravado, where it's just like, yeah, we know that it's going to be, but like, we're just going to, fake it, because I don't think that they're going to make it. And then it just came out that the SEC is maintaining an 8-game schedule moving forward into next year, and they're not redoing the matchups. So the schedule that you have this year for every single team is getting mirrored in terms of home and away next year. So even if you're a Florida fan and thinking, okay, cool, we got jobbed, we have such a hard schedule, but that's okay. Hang the losses on Billy Napier this year. Fire him. I don't think that he's making it till, he's not making it to November, in my mind. Honestly, I don't. If he makes it to November, you keep him the whole entire season. But I don't think he makes it to November. I don't think he makes it to Halloween, right? But if he doesn't make it to Halloween, it's cool, whatever. Maybe we just bring him back, hang the losses on him, bring in whoever else, and then move forward. And then the conference is like, cool, yeah. So if you thought that you could just hang the losses on your ostensibly lame duck coach who won 2 recruiting battles. Now, they were big ones for LJ McCray and the quarterback Willis, right? But that and pretty much nothing else, right? So you hang the losses on him, bring in whoever else, and you go forward with the new group of opponents in 25. Psych! No, you got the same opponents, just flipped where they play, except for the largest outdoor cocktail party, which is in Jacksonville, in the state that you want to run, and Georgia just comes down, I-95 and whips your ass over there every single year. So like if you were looking forward to be like, fine, we'll take our lumps in 24, get rid of Billy Napier, and it'll be a new day and a new horizon in 25. That horizon is going to be like Tom Hanks and Groundhog's Day, baby. Y'all going to wake up and face the same gauntlet all over again. Yikes a million.
And you love that.
I look, hey, absolutely. This is joy and just sheer excitement on my face. I love them going through all of that, and they did get jobbed by the cadre of teams that were put on that schedule for next year. I would love it if the ACC went back and made a similar move and just said, "Hey, you know what? We're going to give the Miami Hurricanes this same cakewalk kind of schedule in 25 we gave in 24, but no schedule is a cakewalk if you keep tripping over your own 2 feet, Miami. So let's get it together, please. And then I can really, because imagine Imagine what I could do or say if we were like a 10 or 11 win team and at the same time they were having the futility that I think they could have. This would be, you remember in 2000 and what was it? It was 2016. Notre Dame went 4-8 and everybody was talking about Notre Dame. And we couldn't because we were one of the 4 teams that they beat. And I had to say, it was like the Simpsons meme with Bart like upstairs after a broken leg looking at everybody playing outside. And I'm like, everybody's tap dancing on Notre Dame's grave right now. Everybody's calling them trash. And I can't do that because as soon as we came, I was like, yeah, they're 4-8. It's like the middle school lunchroom when people are getting roasted. And all of a sudden, the funniest kid in class says, I know you ain't talking. And I'm not going to step out for that because I already see how that's going to go. So please do what needs done, and I can really enjoy that after August the 31st. Thank you.
That Miami team was 9-4. That was Rick's first team.
It was, and lost 4 in the middle in October to. It was either the month of October or 1 week in October into November. In the middle of the season, and that was when, after losing to Florida State for those years, this is where that phrase of don't let them beat you twice or 3 or 4 or 5 times because they would beat us and then we would lose consecutively. It wasn't even like a 1 week hangover. It was like a month hangover. But yes, a 9-4 team that won that bowl game in Orlando and played well and set the stage for, what happened next in 2017. Yeah, all of that being true. But when it came to Notre Dame, we couldn't say anything because we lost to those bums.
I do anticipate a close game and a good game. Like my confidence level, and we're talking in March about a game in August. But anyway, my confidence level of Miami winning the game is extremely high, but by some blowout or decided figure is not so high.
That's fair. Yeah, I can see that. I think that the talent is there for it to happen, but we will need to kind of show and prove. Maybe get a couple turnovers to be able to, get the margin of victory up a little bit. But yeah, I don't think that you're completely off base with that. But as I continue to say, by 1 or 100, as long as we have more points than them at the end of 60 minutes, that's the result that we need.
Falconer TRX, yes. Reminding George, yes, that the loss is 149 days away. Falconer TRX, we appreciate your comments. Of course, you're amazing. I'm going to let this comment. I'm just going to let it. We'll post it. I'm not going to read that off. All right, Falconer's coming back with Cam, who is the #1 wide receiver this year.
In terms of, I think that you have 2 different things. I think that, like, statistically, in terms of catches and maybe yards, I think that you could still run it back with Xavier Restrepo. Like, I think that this is a guy, going back to the earlier conversation, right? I think that he's going to have a 95, 97 catch rating in the upcoming college football video game. Maybe a 88 to 93 catch in traffic. Like, route running is really good. If you, when you play with the Hurricanes, I would say put him on a lot of option and whip routes because he runs those routes really well. He's quick in and out of his breaks. He catches damn near everything. So statistically, I think that he's going to be able to have another big season. But in terms of being like wide receiver 1, like on 4th in the ball game, regardless of where you are, regardless of the situation, I'm throwing to him. I think that the only candidate currently on the roster, I think there are 2. I think there's one that's likely, and I think that there's one that's possible because of talent, but maybe not because of game experience. The likeliest one is Isaiah Horton because he has built his body. He is looking like he is taking a step forward, switches number to number 2. And again, at the beginning of spring practice, most everybody looked at him the first couple of days in shorts, jerseys, and helmets and said, "Who is that?" Looked like a different guy. And at 6'5", pushing 200 pounds, already showed the ability to run by guys. He was all state in Tennessee in high school and everything, had big time potential, but looks like he's finally stepping into not just that potential, but also has that body type of a guy who can box somebody out, who can just be the player. You know, you have player plays or like him plays. He looks like he could physically fit that mold and then have the talent to do that. So I think that that's your likely number one wide receiver in that kind of guys. The other one is JoJo Trader, who is, I mean, every day just doing crazy stuff. You see these pictures and these still shots from practice, and he's just, showcasing this elite vertical that he has. And again, he's so talented. And even the All-American game, he's making these circus catches, one hand behind his back, twisting, turning, all kinds of stuff like this, that the other All-Americans are like, okay, wait, let me try to figure out how to do that. And he's just like, it's how you do it. JoJo Trader's skill is like Matt Damon's brain in Good Will Hunting, where he saw the super duper advanced calculus as like 2 + 2. And, there's other grad students and other professors like, well, he's just like, I just do it. Like, I see the numbers and like it gets done. And that's JoJo Trader's skill in that way. Now he needs to develop physically. He needs to get experience at that level. But for like a ready-made package towards wide receiver one, I say Isaiah Horton. The potential and skill, I think, are there. For just like the tricks and the athleticism and all that kind of put together for JoJo Trader. But in terms of like sheer raw number of receptions, would not surprise me for Xavier Restrepo. But again, I do believe that like those are two different things, from like leading in terms of catches versus having the stature of the number one wide receiver in the offense.
So I don't see any other news items we need to get to, or no other questions or comments here. So I'm going to run something by you here, Cam, and we'll see what your response is to it. So I did my annual offseason coaches rankings nationally. Now I leave out the group of 5 coaches, rank them separately. I just think it's a completely different deal. Okay. So there are 69 in the Power 5, or what is now the Power 4, 69 head coaches. So before I show you my list, because I don't think it's fair without context and you seeing who could possibly be above or below Mario, to just spit out a number. But what would be your estimation on where he ranks? Not necessarily guessing where I would rank him and do rank him, but your estimation of where you would place him among 69 Power Conference coaches.
First of all, nice. I would say kind of taking all the parts and pieces and putting them together. Like, I think that he would be, he's top 10, probably top 5 if we just look at recruiting in a vacuum. But if we marry that with on-field performance, obviously there's much to be desired in terms of his operations, on-field and decision-making in certain moments. So which I think would probably put him lower than you would think on that list, I would say, probably top half. I think like comfortably top 30, maybe pushing top 25. So if you take those two things together, I would say in that 20 to 25 range kind of fits. There's a lot to like in the potential to move up just because his talent acquisition is elite. But even with that, his personal operations and some of the decision-making and just, some of the things that ails him as a coach, it's funny, Oregon fans loved him and were saying there's no way that he's leaving here to go back there, and even though they'd lost, Willie Taggart from there to Florida State, because he's a Bradenton native, which is in the Tampa area and everything. He's a Florida State fan forever. Cristobal played here, his degrees from here, you know what I mean? So you lost back-to-back coaches to the state of Florida, and it was, we have it great here, couple Rose Bowls, Pac-12 championship, recruiting at an elite level, got some guys that, Miami wanted, even in like your Justin Flows of the world and guys like that. So why would he go there? Because he can recruit the guys here and blah, blah, blah. And it turned from that to we hated him and everything. No, y'all didn't, because you were saying we just won 12 games and we accomplished this and achieved that. And so it was interesting to see the flip up. But I will say that when they brought up some of these issues with game operations and whatnot, they were not necessarily wrong. So I say all that to say somewhere, it wouldn't surprise me if he was slightly above 20, but because of recent performance, I would say not too much higher, but that's kind of my evaluative process as you asked me that.
So to set up how I look at it before we get to my list, number one, it's not a resume ranking, meaning let me go to the biggest extreme example. If Bobby Bowden and Joe Paterno were coaching right now, but they were in their final seasons, I would not rank them like top 2 or 3 coaches in the country just because they are all time.
Fair.
I would be ranking them on their current. If I was having a draft, who am I going to? I'm not, they could be like number 30.
Right.
Because I'm not ranking them based on their legacy and their greatness in their prime. Number one. Number two, it's obviously this more so than any other sport, especially, of course, in the professional ranks, there's such a disparity of resources and brand that to rank and rate and evaluate a coach who is coaching an elite program, fill in the blank, versus somebody toiling at Oregon State or Washington State or somewhere like that, SMU, it's a very difficult thing to do to a certain extent. So I'm not rating necessarily ranking their success, level of success. I'm trying to gauge, okay, what do they have to work with and how well are they doing? But, and I'm doing an in the moment ranking. And then one other caveat before I'll throw it out there. So an extreme case would be David Braun at Northwestern did a remarkable job, like an otherworldly job.
Thanks.
So if you're taking my ranking system to an extreme, you could say he did the best job of anyone in the country. Therefore, he is the number 1 coach in college football. Well, I'm being more nuanced than that, than just say, well, he did the best job. He's number 1 and it's in the moment ranking. All right. Here's where I've got Cristobal. I've got Mario Cristobal at number 38 in the country, down from 31.
Okay.
And to that point, David Braun of Northwestern, again, he's only coached 1 season, and I've got him at 39. Look at the contrast of Greg Schiano and Mario Cristobal. It's, in terms of what they have to work with and resources and school and brand and all that.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. Bill O'Brien hasn't coached a college football team in over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to give that the rest of this business is just my notes. So those are my thoughts. I've got guys like Sonny Dykes and Gus Malzahn, Brett Bielema, just slightly ahead of Cristobal, and he took a hit 7 spots based on last season's performance in my book.
And that's fair, in the scheme. I did think, like I said, that maybe a little bit lower than before. But yeah, I think that he can go up just, like pretty far. But again, we have to win the games. So that's a big part of it. Interesting, different view. I would have to see, even more, but yeah. I mean, it's not totally crazy, I don't think.
Yeah, look at those two top guys there, Dave Clawson and Matt Campbell. They're at Wake Forest and Iowa State, but they're really good coaches.
Fact.
But Yeah, I get interesting comments from viewers about Mario Cristobal, and as I am apt to do when it's a Miami fan that's trying to sell him, I tend to pull back on his disappointments. But people, because of the record at Miami 12 and 13, everybody else in college football tends to crap on him. And then I pull them back to the middle to say, look at the recruiting and look what he did at Oregon. And the job's not done at Miami. So,
And I mean, yeah, all those factors are true. You know, I know it's not a lifetime achievement award ranking, but like the fact that he has recently accomplished these things does matter and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, that's not entirely crazy. Again, in my quick thoughts, a touch lower than I would put him, but not crazily so. And again, if you want to move up the list, go win the games. Starting on my cousin's birthday, August 31st, in Gainesville, Alachua County, you know, against them people, and go from there.